Okay, hi everybody. This is Carrie Murray Nellis with Abiding Love Adoptions, and we are excited today because we have Lauren Larkin on. And we love Lauren for many reasons. One is we got to do her home study, and then we also got to do a placement with her. So people who are not used to the Abiding Love model, we are organized very differently than other adoption agencies. So we will do the home study, and Lauren can tell you if we do a good home study or not. I'll let her deal with that. And then we do the home study, and then we say, bye, love you, but bye. Go work with, this adoption consultant. And so then when we have an expectant mom that wants to make an adoption plan, we will reach out to the adoption consultants and say, hey, this is the situation. Which one of your clients is interested in presenting? And so we were really excited when Lauren and her husband were excited in presenting in one of the cases of the expectant moms that we were working with, and she chose them. And so we kind of got to see it full circle, which doesn't always happen with Abiding Love because of our model. But we really loved it. And the neat thing is we really knew she was educated well, and she was ready. And we also knew that her and her husband's heart was to love big. So we wanted to have Lauren on today because not only has she adopted, and she can tell you briefly about her story, but also she is now a foster mom. So this May is National Foster Awareness Month. And so we often get questions about what does foster care look like versus adoption. So we want to be able to just talk to Lauren about her journey and what she's seen from doing the home study process with adoption versus the other with now with foster care and her journey. So welcome, Lauren.
Yes, thank you. No, I am very excited. This is something that my husband and I have become passionate about and learning. Yeah. So do you want to ask me a question, or do you just want me to jump in?
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started your adoption journey, and then let's get into how you were called to being a foster parent.
So my husband and I were married in 2011, and I've always wanted to be a mom, always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, didn't really imagine much else. And the Lord did not easily provide us a way to have biological children. So we kind of stopped and said, what are our options? And we never tried fertility treatments because we knew that as we took probably 2 years of just saying, what can we do? Like, what do we feel like is the Lord is kind of calling us more towards? And we definitely saw that in adoption, but we were like, okay, well, we still could do the fertility treatments in the beginning, but we never wanted adoption to be our plan B. We never wanted it to be a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
That started off really passionately in my husband's heart of like, this is not a means to an end to me, that we didn't get what we wanted this way, so we're going to do it this way. And so
you said two things there that I really love. One is adoption is not plan B. I loved that. But also, you said it wasn't a means, an end to a means. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, so I love that you got that.
Yeah. And it was just like, once we kind of, so we probably took 2 years of just like wanting it to make sure that was kind of, we did it for the right reasons. And so it was a hard, long 2 years because my heart was anxious and ready. And then when we started the process, we committed that if the Lord miraculously allowed us to get pregnant, we were on this journey, and that was not stopping us from continuing this journey. Because again, this was not going to be a plan B for us. So then in the beginning of February of 2018, I had a friend that had done a study with you guys, and so she recommended you guys, and so we're in Georgia, and we said, okay. So I called. Actually, I think I talked to you, Carrie, on the phone, and then got referred to Lori and started that. So we started that in probably the beginning of March, I would say. And within, I would say 8 weeks, yeah, it was done. And we were actually taking an international trip. So after our home study was done, we took like 2 months before we went and started seeing cases of expectant moms. And within probably 9 days after kind of starting to see cases of expectant moms, our son's birth mom chose us, then at the time, expectant mom, want to make that clear. And then she gave birth 7 weeks, I think almost to the day after, after she chose us. So he was born then, and we were able to be at the hospital and love on her before and after. And so that was special, and to be able to meet her, because that doesn't always get to happen. And so,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that was kind of adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so funny because that, we kind of thought of, okay, what are like here, these are our options for, what we could do. And we loved adoption. I would say, I had said this to you, Carrie, and I say this very reluctantly because I want people to hear my heart, but we had the best case scenario when it comes to adoption, as much as you can say that with the brokenness that's in it. But if you could imagine, we had a great home study that was very quick. We were chosen quickly. My son was born quickly, like, so you had all that. So we didn't have, like, there was nothing that was telling us like, don't go adoption again, except for we said we feel like we want to meet a need. And as much as we loved that experience, there generally is a wait list for adoption, a domestic infant adoption, meaning there's more people willing to do it than there necessarily there's a need, and so we said, there's nothing wrong with that. And the people that adopt again, there's nothing wrong with it. But we said, for us, we wanted to meet a need and to be able to fulfill that. And so we felt like foster care, we were like, there's a need because there are more kids than there are homes. And our heart going into it was not like to adopt if it's just the three of us forever, just me, my husband, and my son, then that's perfectly fine. But we did make a commitment that we would see a placement through. So our heart is not to disrupt a placement. And so if unfortunately a placement is not able to go home, we would, then be consider adoption then, but really rooting for that not to happen, for the first plan of reunification to happen. So that's kind of how we got into foster care. It's just saying we see there's a need, we feel like we can meet the need, and so here we are.
Cool.
So.
Well, I think you said something that was interesting to me, that there's more prospective adoptive families than necessarily children in domestic infant adoption. I would like to say though, and Vicki, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, and we all know Vicki likes to tell me when I'm wrong, but I do want to say, I think that there is a lack of people that are necessarily wanting to adopt and really be real with the birth parents and have a real open relationship. That's something we're still, it's hard to find those people and that really get the heart of adoption. I think a lot of people, just like you were talking about, that it's plan B, and but this is not, adoption isn't plan B. Adoption is plan A, and what does God have for you? So Vicki, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I would agree with that. We've been really blessed in our 4 years of Abiding Love to have some amazing families who do get the heart of adoption. But just as we've branched out outside of our bubble, which is families coming to us, sometimes I feel like I'm stepping back into the 1950s and 60s, where it's like, oh no, the child can't know, and oh no, they can't, and it's like, that honestly surprises me, especially when we go do teachings and trainings and things like that. That's still that's still the norm culturally, is to have this just pretend like the other person didn't exist kind of thing. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Outside of our bubble, I would agree with that.
Yeah. We've created a bubble.
Well,
Hey, and Lauren, you're in the bubble.
well, thank you. And I will say, going into adoption and going into the home study, and I'm thinking of that first time we were sitting in Macon with Jill and talking, we knew nothing. We were not educated. We didn't have the right terminology. I can still remember her correcting my husband several times on certain terminology, but then just teaching him where that comes from. Like, it wasn't just, hey, don't say that. Like, she was teaching him, like, this is where that comes from, and that's why we don't, so we didn't know anything. And I would say, going into it, our heart was not initially openness. And so it was not gonna, it would have been kind of what you would probably consider a semi-open, like, it was not. And then just what the Lord did to our heart by the end of the home study. And then I had said this to you, Carrie, but I've said this to other prospective adoptive parents, that we have to do our best to be as educated as we can for our kids, because we are going to shape a lot of what they think of adoption, and by what they're exposed to, what they're thinking, what they're taught, any of it. And my husband and I have said time and time and time again, very, very, very few things in life have changed us like watching our son's birth mom come in with him and leaving without him. And I can think of several stories in the hospital that just very few things will change me like that. And so it's like, how can you not, I don't know, how can you not love her? How can you not want, and it's like, I love my child. And if that's what's best for him, how could I not want that? As a parent, most all of us would say we want what's best for our kids, and so in this situation, he has something unique that's, I wasn't adopted. My husband was not adopted. And so it's like, how could we ever begin to completely understand what he would think and what he would feel, And so it's like, just giving it all to him, all of the answers that we have and what we know. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we get a lot of pushback. I think that, a lot of people look at the home study process as a checklist of paperwork and everything. And we get some pushback because we really do feel education is important. And because we want to give you the tools to be the best, parents. And so I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I feel like our goal is, we love it when people come in and say, I don't know about this, but our goal is to just make you look at other options and to kind of stretch you, and whatever God has for you, and what he's planned for you, we're going to be cheering you on wholeheartedly. Some people, that's not their calling, and that's fine, but we do think it's important to open people's eyes to it. So one of the things, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is, as an attorney, I always love it when, and I had a phone call earlier today with a family that's like at the very beginning, and they're like, I don't know what foster care looks like. I don't know what private adoption looks like. What does international adoption look like? And I love meeting with clients, and a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in foster care adoption because it's cheaper. And so that's one of the things that we get. And, one of my things I always say is, like, if you are a foster parent, your job is to cheer mom and dad on as they work that case plan. It's a temporary place. It's a temporary safe place where that child is, or children are safe, and they're getting their needs met, their physical needs, and hopefully emotional needs as well. And so let's talk about the money issue. Was that something that, as to why you chose foster care in the first place, or the second place, I guess?
I would say yes and no. Yes, being that's why a reason we didn't go private adoption route again. Not because we couldn't have necessarily afforded it, but because we were like, okay, what better way can we, do this? But we could have just gone straight to the state to adopt. There are kids that are ready to be adopted at this very moment. Right. So that's why I also say no. And so but foster care, no, it was the goal to go into it was not to grow our family again through adoption. And so we have said, if in the end it is just absolutely not possible for a child to be reunified, and unfortunately that is true sometimes,
Yeah.
then we would see that through to adoption. But that was not our goal. Within an hour of we have 3 kiddos now that are siblings. Within an hour of them being in our home, I was on the phone with their mom telling her, I'm rooting for you. Like, I am on your side, because if I didn't have my son, that's what I would want to hear. I would want to hear that somebody was rooting for me to get my kid back, for rooting for me to finish my case plan so that I could be with my child. And even the other day, I was, we were in the car with the kids, and they were and Mother's Day was, they're doing this Mother's Day stuff, and like, so it's a lot more on their mind, than even a normal day. And we're talking about that, and doing a video call with mom and making her cards and stuff like that. And the kids were like, I think they get into this mindset of they love you and they love their house, their life with you, but they love their mom too. And it's like, I think they start to feel guilty, one or the other. And I could tell that with our kids the other day, and they were saying, Miss Lauren, we really miss mommy. But I could tell they were very hesitant in saying that. And so I just pulled the car over and I was like, guys, I want to talk to you, because I love that you miss mommy. I want you to miss mommy. And so it's okay to miss mommy. And that doesn't mean that, you can't have fun with us while you're here until you go home. Like, and so it's like, because at the same time, if this was my situation, I would want my son to miss me. I would want him to want to. So it's like, I want to encourage that. I want them to miss their mom. I want them to want to be back, And so it's, but I was on the phone with her, within an hour, just saying that and saying, you're their mom, like, them. So like, let's talk about, so-and-so and what can I do? But, like, you talked to me about this, and one of them, has eczema. And so it's like, let's talk about this. Like, what have you found that works best for this? Like, she's mom. And so it's like trying her the best to include her after doctor visits, calling her to say, this is what, this is where we are weight wise or whatever it is. And, so-and-so wants a haircut. What do you think of that? Like, she's mom. All those decisions that I make for my child because I'm his mom, I want her to be able to help make too, because she's their mom. So, and I think it's when you can include a mom, or I say a mom, dad too, when you can include the parents in those decisions, I think in my opinion, I think it helps motivate them even more in that case plan, because they're not feeling as much of that disconnect, so.
So how do you see your role being different? I mean, you're mom to your son, Beckett, and now you're a foster mom to these 3 kiddos, and we aren't going to name them. We want to keep their information all private. How is your role different between the 2?
It's so hard, because it's like, we do have a temporary guardianship. Like, we have a letter that says that we can make those decisions for them. I can enroll them in school. I can take them to the doctor. I can do all of those things that my hands are tied in certain, things that, DFACS says has to be done or whatever. But for the most part, I can make those decisions. I can make a decision of if they can have a sleepover, or if they go to a friend. Like, I can make decisions. And so it's hard, because it's like, it's like it almost feels like you're co-parenting, but it's different too. I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it, but it is, day to day. Yes, there obviously are decisions that, okay, I'll decide what they have for dinner tonight or things like that. But like, I did ask when they came, I asked mom, can you send me a list of their favorite foods? And so it is very much, I want to include her. I want her to, to be there to help make decisions. And so, yes, she's not able to make every single decision, not because she doesn't care, but because it's just not reasonable for me to, be on the phone with her all day, every day, making every little choice of what they wear for the day or whatever, but, so I think it's just that temporary that temporary thing of, I'm going to love you, you know, while you're here, and I'm going to love your mom, you know, while you're here, and, you know, and just root her on, cheer for her, you know. And she's great. She's amazing. She's super, super sweet, and just loves her kids, just loves them. So.
Well, one of the things I get from many foster parents I work with, either as an attorney or just friends or just people I see and stuff I see on social media and stuff, there seems to be a fear almost of foster parents, and afraid of the parents, afraid of interacting, afraid of asking those. But you don't seem to have that. So what's going on with that?
I would say I would honestly say, and I'm not saying this because I'm on here with you, I would honestly say it's education. It's education that went in from the beginning of our adoption journey to, I would say there was some education in our home study for foster care, but not that much, not because our home study provider she was so great, the lady that did it. But she just was like, you guys are really well educated. Like, the home study was just incredibly fast, because she was like, I just don't feel like there's a whole lot I need to teach you. So I would say it's the education aspect of it. And there's a long weekend of training that you have to do in the beginning before they start your home study. And sitting in that was when I just had this realization of, I'm sitting here with the perspective of a mom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have this same perspective if I weren't a mom with my child, and sitting here saying, I cannot believe the intense love I have for this little person, but their mom feels the same way about them. And so just, I think when you're doing it as a mom already, and you're just like, it does something. It just changes, because you're just picturing this being you and your child, you know? And so, no, I had no fear. I mean, there is, like, when you're first, you know, that first phone call with her, there is a little bit of like nervousness going into it. But I think from what I have read, I think families are more willing and able to work their case plan when they're feeling involved, when they're feeling like the foster family is rooting for them, that it's not everyone in the world against them trying to keep their kids from them. And so I think, you know, and there's also just an ease of, like, you know, we just asked her, we want to take a family vacation. I didn't want to have to, you know, if you can't take the kids and they go in respite, I didn't want to have to put the kids in respite. I didn't want them to have a change. And so there's just even the ease of, she feels comfortable with us, and she knows that I respect her as their mom. And so it's just, you know, because of that, it just makes the relationship easier, even while they're here, and better for me to be able to say, hey, can they go on vacation with us? And for her to feel more confident in saying yes, you know, because she doesn't have to, and that's her decision. She's their mom. She can say no. And so, but it's like just all of those things of, you know, wanting her to know that her kids are safe and they're loved. And so, yeah.
Has there been any pushback from DFACS? And in Georgia, we're in Georgia, everybody's in Georgia. So in Georgia, we call it DFACS, Department of Family Children Services. Every state has their own little acronyms and all that stuff. Has there been any pushback from DFACS about the fact that you do have contact with mom?
No, their DFACS worker is amazing. She is really, I feel like, not the norm for DFACS workers. She's amazing. And she's, you know, she really knows the kids. She's taken a lot of time to really know them. So no, I have, you know, you do have to respect a judge's decision and what he's allowed or she has allowed, you know, in a case plan for, you know, visits, phone calls, all of that. And so there are certain things obviously you're required to do, because that's what the judge has ordered for contact with, you know, the kid's family. But then also, you know, you do have some freedom outside of that, and then sometimes you don't. So, you know, there has had to be clarification where I've called to say, hey, you know, let's talk about this, so I understand that I'm doing this okay or whatever. So I do have to follow within those rules. But as far as me talking to her freely, the kids, no. Their DFACS worker has been great. And she'll actually, in the beginning, she would text me to say, especially, you know, with the coronavirus going on, they've cut out visits right now. And so she's not getting to see them. And so, and that's not against her, that's the state, that's the whole state. And so, their DFACS worker saying, hey, let's make sure we're getting more video calls or things like, so she's actually been great. No, there has.
I was going to ask, are y'all doing video calls?
I try to do them every other day with them. Sometimes I would do them every day, but sometimes with 4 kids, it's not feasible to do them every day. But I do try to do them every other day. And yeah, they really love that. But they definitely talk to her every single day. They are on the phone with her at least once a day.
So how do you keep this boundary of, you got 3 kids, you're loving on them, you're filling in this position, you're not mom, and they know you're not mom because you're not trying to take that role. But how do you create this boundary for children that don't understand boundaries? Because I don't think any children really do understand boundaries. So, but at any rate, and so that they don't see you, they don't call you mom, or how do you create that boundary to protect who she is and their life, and then this temporary place where you are?
Yeah. Well, I think we initially, when they came in, we just said, I'm Miss Lauren and this is Mr. Spencer. And so that's just what they call us now. But, I have friends that have that have 2 placements, and one they've had for 2 years and one they've had for a year and a half. And those kids call them mom and dad. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they are to them. They still know, and they have very regular contact with their, parents too. And so it's not that. So I don't think that it's necessarily always wrong for that. But in this, I think it's situation by situation too. The length that you've had them, and this situation, no, their mom is their mom. And so now the kids, based on their ages, they're a little bit, 2 of them are a little bit older, so they definitely understand more, and they're talking and communicating. And so a couple of times they have said, but right now you're kind of like a mom and dad. And I said, yeah, what does a mom and dad do? And so they'll kind of, so we talked about that, like what mom and dads do for kids or whatever. And so, we've said, they'll say, okay, but they don't call us mom and dad, but they'll say, but you're kind of like a mom and dad right now. And, until we see mommy or whatever. And so, they kind of know that. And there is I think there is, I don't know. I don't have the best answer for that, but I would say for right now, for this situation, I didn't feel like it was appropriate, and it's still new, if they're with us in a year, it might be different, but with their regular contact that they get to have with their mom, I think it's easier to set those boundaries that this is mommy, and, and we're here to love you and take care of you while you're here. So.
Vicki, you're being very quiet over there.
Surprising.
I'm just listening. All sounds good. I don't really have anything to add.
Well, so what was the difference between the home study that you did for the adoption versus the home study for foster care? Was it the same paperwork? Was it just different education? What were the differences and similarities?
So it's so funny because by the time so you have to do your long weekend of training before they'll come out and start the home study. But by the time we went to our weekend of training, I had already done all the paperwork. We'd already had the drug test, the fingerprints, the background checks, everything, because I'd done this before. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting at a table with a single mom that was going through it, and she'd never done a home study before. And she was like, what? I can't believe you already have. I'm like, I've already done all of this. And I already, and so this was not, it didn't feel as overwhelming as it did the first time. Mm-hmm. I would say the amount of paperwork might have been less, but pretty similar. I would say we had 4 in-person meetings, whereas before we had 3, but I think that's new. 4 was new maybe at the beginning of January, because the state changed their home study process, at least for foster care, at the beginning of January. Mm-hmm. So we had 4 visits, in-home visits. I would say the in-depth of safety of your home was a lot more. I had a tally mark on my phone of how many plugs and outlets we needed, and I didn't have to do that before. And so that was a good bit more. And But I would say the talking, when with the home study lady, like that was pretty similar. I would say, I mean, it wasn't quite as long, but I think it was because she felt like our education was there.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have a lot of training outside of the home study. Like with you guys, our training mostly came from our one-on-one with Jill. And then, but then this, we had to have the weekend of training and all of that. So there were a lot of similarities, but then it's just different. I would say the biggest difference is probably the walkthrough of your home, of just like all.
Yeah, because you have to have your home child-proofed and all of that, and with the adoption home study, if you're adopting an infant, you don't have to have all the gates open or, up and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Magnetic locks, everything. It can't be magnetic lock. So, oh my goodness, you should see me getting my 4 kids' teeth brushed in the morning. Like, just like we're up at 7 a.m., like barely awake, trying to get the magnetic lock down to unlock everybody's toothpaste, because at some point, some child has swallowed toothpaste. So now it's got to be behind a magnetic lock. So, yes, but it's good. It's fine.
That's awesome. How has Beckett handled this dynamic change?
Surprisingly well. We lovingly refer that he has only child syndrome. And because I stay home, he's just not exposed to, he's not been to daycare. I mean, he won't even sit in church nursery. Like, you put him in there, he'll just scream until he throws up. He is so attached. And I think he's actually, like, they have these different stages, and I think he is in a normal stage of separation anxiety right now. But he is like, we went to the doctor the other day for one of my kiddos, and he was with me, and we walked in the door, and his eyes just got really big, like I was about to leave him somewhere, and he's just clinging to my leg, screaming for dear life. Mm-hmm. I'm holding the other one that, can't walk yet. I got the paperwork, the diaper bags, and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is fine. But but that's, that's his little personality right now. So I think it's actually been a good change for him. Mm-hmm. But I would say I was really expecting a lot of jealousy, and he really hasn't had that. I honestly think he enjoys the interaction with other kids, that he's not, like, he has somebody to play with. And it's actually made him start talking more, because he just, like, wouldn't talk very much. And so his favorite word in the entire world is daddy. Everything is about daddy. Literally nothing else in the entire world compares to his dad, to him. Right. Like, completely obsessed with his dad. And so that was like his favorite word ever. And so it's actually made him branch out more a little bit with saying words and interacting with the kids more. So I'd say overall it's been really well. He's done great.
I've had a lot of foster parents be concerned about going into foster care because of the children that they've either biologically or adopted, their children that are their children, just being concerned about them and how they would handle with children coming in and out of the home. How have you and your husband talked about that with Beckett and prepared him for that?
Well, he's still little now, so there's not a lot of talking and communicating with him. But I think I want to put in him that this is a heart of serving. Like, this is a way that we can serve them. And I think just the same thing, just teaching him that, like, and I always wonder what his unique perspective will be like as he gets older, because of adoption in his life, that he's not a biological child of ours. And so, I do wonder. And it's like, I don't know. I can't answer that for him. I don't know how he'll feel. And each year he might feel differently, as he gets older. And so just a way that this is a way that we can serve not only the kids, but their parents, and loving them. And so just being thankful for our time with them. So
it sounds like, but I think it sounds like that's just his norm. And so, I mean, I have 2 girls, and Annabelle Grace is now 10. Scary. Caroline will turn 6 this Saturday. But I will never forget when I was pregnant with Caroline, because we've had so many babies come in and out of our home that we have fostered during the revocation period, where a mom can change her mind on the adoption. I had babies in my house doing that before I even had my first child. So I remember when Gil and I looked at each other after, back then it was 10 days, and we're like, she's still here. What do we do with her? But with Annabelle Grace, I mean, when I was pregnant with Caroline, she would tell waitresses, she'd be like, we get to keep this baby. Mom says we get to keep this baby, you know, and those kinds of things. But that was her norm. And that's just how we presented it to her, that this is the way that we serve. I think a lot of people are concerned. And again, every case is different, every situation is different, and every child is different. But it sounds like you would join me in encouraging parents to realize that our kids are resilient, and how we approach things and how we all, you know, present things to them has a big impact on who they become. And so, because everybody's like, oh, they wouldn't like it if the child comes in and out. But if you start that from the beginning and say, look, this is our mission. This is, you know, I don't know how long he or she's going to be here. We get to love him or her, and we're going to love them well, you know, even if when they go back and all that. So, I love that, you know what I see? I love that I see that y'all are not leading in fear. Y'all are leading in boldness and staying true to the calling that God gave you. So one of the questions, and we'll wrap this up, but I wanted to ask you is, why do you think that y'all did private adoption first and then foster care? I mean, why didn't you do foster care first?
I would say I can't express to you the lack of education we had before going into adoption, just literally just not knowing anything. And so, but I would absolutely say a selfishness. It was absolutely a selfishness on my part of saying, I would have struggled more with foster care in that moment. I wouldn't have been as open to these kids' parents, you know, initially, you know, but it's having not been a mom. This is the Lord. It really is, because I would not be the same foster mom today if we hadn't done adoption first. So it's really just the work of the Lord. But it really it started off more as a selfish aspect of I wanted a baby, you know, to do that first. That was mine, you know, and thinking I just couldn't get that baby back. But it's like, here I am. And, you know, we do have a baby, and I could give him back to his parents tomorrow. You know, if they called me today and told us to pack up the kids' bags, they were going home to mom, I could do that, you know? And so honestly, it's the grace of the Lord that we did foster care second, because we can be better foster parents because of that. And I wanted to touch base on the fear thing too, of like, and saying to prospective foster parents that do have kids in the house, one of the best things our home study provider said to us this time around was, it's okay to be cautious. Like, it's in the regards of, well, first let me say, I hate the thought that like people have that all foster kids are damaged. That's kind of the initial thought. A lot of things that people have, like, well, you're going to bring into your house and they're going to hurt your kid, or they're going to like, because these kids aren't damaged. They're not ruined. These kids are not like, so yeah. So get that out of your mind. I'm not saying that kids don't have trauma, but
right.
Getting past that, you know, that these kids are just damaged or something. But I will say, I mean, we have an older child right now. And so my son is 20 months old. I do have to protect him. And so that is one of the things that, you know, the home study provider had said is, you know, we want to protect the kids that are already in the home too. And so I did initially, until I developed trust, which I absolutely have with my kids now. I did initially put a little sensor on my son's door, on Beckett's door, that it would just alert my phone if his door, he's still in a crib, but like if his door was opened. And that was just something that helped my mom. It was nothing there was nothing that they told me about my kiddos coming in. It was just something that, you know, it's okay to initially have those, you know, you will develop trust with your kids. And I have that now, and I don't feel like I need it, you know? So, I mean, right. I'm not saying there's not wisdom and some level of, you know, protection with your kiddo, but I would say it's very different when your kids are in the house. You know, you have this placement coming in and you're like, okay, I thought this was going to be very different. And that, like, you have all these things worked in your mind that it's going to be like, and then they come in and you're like, these are just kids. They're just kids, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I love that. Well, we talk a lot at Abiding Love that the mission of adoption is not just, it's not a transaction. It's not getting a baby. It's a, two families, or if the birth father's involved, three families coming in and to being one family and one big family. And it's that mission that it's not just up at centered, it's not just this baby, it's her too. And I feel like with you and what you're talking about with foster care is you really get the mission of foster care. And the mission of foster care is not to adopt, but to be that placehold and safe place for these children while mom and dad are working their case plan. And that you realize it's a temporary thing, that you're willing, if for some reason, whatever happens, if, reunification can't happen. But I love that you get that mission. So I think that one of the things that we really want to get across to people is just know what God's called you to do, whether it be adoption, whether it be foster parents, whether it's international adoption. What God has called you to, you've got to be faithful to. You've got to step forward, even if it doesn't make sense. If He's called you to it, He's going to be faithful in that. And I love that you've kind of seen both sides of that journey, and you've done such a great job with it. And I thank you for that, because we need more foster parents. We need people that are going to get the mission of foster care, that it's not about, just getting a baby or a cheap way of adopting or anything like that. So last question, how can we as a community, how can we as a body of Christ, how can we better support you as a foster mom and other foster parents? What can we do to help?
One of the best things that our church family has done right now is meals for us. But just the praying and the checking in is big too, just to feel like somebody remembers you, because it's easy to go on with your life, but somebody remembers you. And then just as simple as like somebody that dropped a meal off at our front porch, right? That it's like when I am wrangling 4 kids and 2 of them are babies and screaming at my feet because they're hungry, and yeah. So, but I think just that I actually, the agency we're with does their community of care, that people that will, help if you need clothes or food or whatever. And so I am thankful for that. And we do have that with our church. So, yeah, I think those things. And I wanted to say one other thing when you're talking about, it not being a means, or, that a foster care, the goal is not adoption. That I was listening to this judge talking about how when he has to do TPRs in foster, because that's what he does with foster care, he's like, I view it as a death sentence.
It is. It's the death penalty of parenting.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's even like that, viewing that as a foster parent, Yeah. Of what that means, the gravity of what that means when this is happening against somebody's will. It was sad enough in our situation with my son, but that was not happening against his birth mom's will, and so just, yeah. So.
Yeah, it is. It's the death penalty of parenting, parental rights. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it is. And I'm glad when a judge gets the seriousness of that and appreciates the seriousness of that and the high standard that the state has to meet and should have to meet in order to do that. So thank you so much, Lauren. We love you. We're praying for you. Thanks for being an amazing mama to Beckett and foster mama to these 3 kids. And we're just very thankful for you. So thank you so much, everybody. If y'all have any other questions y'all want me to float over to Lauren, feel free to message us and we will get it out there. Disclaimer is that we are not trying to be anti-foster care or to be against foster parents. Adopting, that is not the thing. That's just that the mission of foster care is just that, is a temporary placehold, and to be cheering on these mamas and dads as they work their case plan. So if you have any hate mail regarding that, send it to Vicki. I'll get you her number and her email. So
very quiet.
I know. She's very quiet on that. So see everybody later.